Welcome to the Meria Heller Show, on the net since 2000 and still going strong. If you feel like you're not getting the real news, if you feel like you're not connected spiritually, you have found your home. Meria covers a wide range of topics as only a snarky New Yorker can. Straight up, no chaser. No censorship, no corporate sponsors, thus true freedom of speech. Your subscription gives you unlimited access as a member of the smartest audience on earth. Relax and enjoy the education. Now here's Meria.
Good morning, world. Meria here, alive and kicking. Welcome to Hell and High Water with my friend, my co-host, my adopted son, Chuck Ochelli. If you're not familiar with Chuck's work, get over to Ochelli.com. One of the last, what do I have now, 4 people that I recommend to listen to. So good morning, Chuck.
Good morning, Mom. You know, I think it's morning. I'm not sure. Actually, it's afternoon where I am, but does it really matter? It's very hot here, by the way. Hot and humid. Just so you know, I'm sweating while I'm talking to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. But at least you're not sweating like Trump, I hope.
Well, you know, I think I might be sweating as much, but not for the same reasons.
Well, he certainly deserves to be sweating because, you know, when they decided to take care of Jeffrey Epstein, they must have thought in their weird and stupid minds that these cases were going to go away. But they're not going to go away. And he was the only one that could object to showing the evidence in court. So now it's going to be very interesting.
Well, you know, I keep hoping it's going to be interesting, but again, when you have a public which is divided as to whether somehow or other the Clintons are still involved with offing the guy, or, you know, or something else nefarious has happened, but pay no attention to the fact that the DOJ, which is totally under control of, you know, the Trump-decided minion there, who is also a longtime cover-up artist and the son of a guy who offered Epstein a teaching job earlier on in life. You know, when you have that happening, and that's the guy in charge of the investigation, and somebody dies in a special housing unit, which I broke down extensively last night on my show, as to what that actually means.
Right,
okay?
right.
You know, the ridiculousness is beyond belief about what's happened.
Absolutely. Well, listen, you look at William Barr and look at what he did to the Mueller report. So he's probably going to make mincemeat out of whatever report comes out of this investigation of Epstein's death.
A very bad sign when, you know, even Epstein's people go and get Michael Baden, who is yet again another long-time cover-up artist, to come on in and make judgments. You know, help us out with the autopsy, Michael Baden. After all, you're exactly the guy who was the head of the House Select Committee on Assassinations medical panel regarding the JFK assassination. Oh my, it came up again, didn't it, Meria?
Well, I think that the coroner they brought in is the same one that helped clear O.J. Simpson.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's Michael Baden.
Well, there you go. So you got, you know, these people never seem to go away. Do you know what I mean? They live forever. It certainly seems like they live forever. But I think that, you know, all of a sudden, you know, Trump goes on a 10-day vacation. From what is what I want to know. But, you know, he goes on vacation after his sweatiest performance ever. The same day that Epstein supposedly offed himself?
Well, which sweaty performance? Are we talking about showing up and having a baby handed to Melania so he can give a thumbs up because nobody else would see him that could actually speak for themselves at the hospital? Are we talking about that day, or are we talking about the day where he was frothing at the mouth on the lawn, screaming about stuff, exactly when Epstein died, and having wars with, who was he battling with that day? Scaramucci hadn't objected to him yet, so it was somebody else.
Who knows? He's always ragging on everybody from Bette Midler to the Mooch. But it's interesting, you know, to watch him sweat, you know, with all the cases against him. But at the same time, on my new show, I'm covering all these crazy laws that he's passing and destroying the entire country and planet through his taking over of the EPA. So, you know, people are not paying attention. I don't know if you've watched or heard of, I just finished watching Netflix's 5-part series, The Family. If you haven't seen it, Chuck, watch it. It's slow-moving but informative about the evangelical Christians' hold on our government since Ike Eisenhower and their National Prayer Breakfast.
You know what's funny about that, Maria? You know, and this is full disclosure to the listeners. We do talk before we go to air, but we did not discuss this. Maria doesn't know that I actually binge watched this last night.
Oh, I did too.
When I was doing work.
I watched the last 3 last night.
Yeah, that's what I was doing, and I was astounded. I said, you know what? I got to go back over this. I really want to interview the author. It is an amazing story, and finally makes some sense out of this madness we've been looking at regarding the Christian mafia.
Right.
Which, let's be honest, there is a Christian mafia.
Right.
They don't necessarily always carry guns. Other people do it for them. Okay?
Right.
And they're out there exerting influence through things like this prayer breakfast, which is an amazing thing. It's one of those anomalies most people look at and go, well, that's odd. It must be the Congress. You know, they do have a chapel. This maybe makes sense. It doesn't. It's actually nothing more than a well-covered excuse to, pay to play.
Absolutely.
And amazing the work that's in that documentary. I was absolutely like, how many confirmations of things that I thought I knew are being confirmed here, again, by a secret organization, and they connect to many other past political scandals,
right,
including Governor Sanford, including these other things that have happened in Nevada, and other places where you've seen the rise and fall of individuals who are supposed to be, God's chosen politicians,
right,
and how it is that they wrap their minds around supporting, this is God's imperfect instrument, is Donald Trump.
Right.
I've been shaking my head at this for years, trying to figure out how they justify it, and that documentary actually shows you, doesn't it?
Well, it makes it very clear that what they believe is that God favors the elite and doesn't care about the poor, which is why they made up their little book, Jesus, instead of the whole Bible. And then you look at, and I've always known that he was a demon, Billy Graham. And there he was, through the whole thing. I mean, his son is twice as evil, but he doesn't even hide it. He's out there with his hatred spewing out of his mouth. But you got to also remember, William Barr is a member of Opus Dei. We've got, how many Opus Dei on the Supreme Court? Mike Pompeo, Mike Pence. I mean, the list goes on and on. So this really isn't about white supremacy. This is about Christian supremacy.
Right.
And this government was not formed by Christians, okay? If people actually read the Founding Fathers, especially Jefferson, when he was asked about Christianity, he says, I don't see anything useful about it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
no, absolutely true. And the amazing thing is, I really am going to start using the phrase now, Christian Mafia, because you notice how that got repeated through that, and not by the people trying to make a point in the documentary, but by the individuals that they were interviewing who were like, no, we're not even going to hide this.
Right.
Yes, we exert influence. Yes, we're willing to go meet with Muammar Gaddafi, and it doesn't matter what he does. We actually get the government to move because we're a nonprofit and we're part of an invisible empire. Wait a minute. Where is it that sort of concept comes from?
Right. And, well, let's not leave out, what happened to separation of church and state. I was very disappointed to see that, they sold this bullshit to Eisenhower because Eisenhower realized it would be good for him during the Cold War, not because he was a believer, but he went along with it. But when you see all those fake Christian devils with their hands on Trump and saying that, politicians, leaders don't have to be moral. I mean, they basically say it. It just shows you how sick this country is. And then you have the fake Christians that say, oh, if Trump doesn't get reelected, there's going to be a war on Christians. They're going to kill Christians. Well, if these people and if America under Trump is what they consider Christian, maybe that would be a good thing.
Well, not only that, but I mean, look, they've been trying to get a declared war against Christianity for a long time. We've heard about the war on Christmas. I mean, tune into Fox News if you want to see it. Christians are being targeted. They're being persecuted. I mean, quite frankly, considering the population mixes in the places that they say they're being persecuted, quite frankly, they would have been wiped off the planet already by the numbers, okay?
Absolutely. But that's how they can continue to demonize the Muslims, the Islamophobia out there. When I'm sure there were more Christians involved in 9/11 than there were any real Muslims involved in it.
Well, there you go. And I got to tell you, as dangerous as, yes, indeed, there is a Jewish mafia. Yes, indeed, there is an Italian mafia. Yes, indeed, there is Russian organized crime. There is all sorts of Asian organized crime. But you know what? I really feel as though we need to make sure that the notation is made that there is literally a Christian mafia. This is what these people are. And they will justify, just like any other organized criminal organization, their exertion of power, their exertion of influence, based on some sort of justification that makes it all make sense. Now, is it all about the money? Nah, not really. It's about the control. And this is the secret hand of control that everybody's kind of looking for when they're drawing lines between some rather interesting individuals that don't seem to go together. And it's the thing that I've been trying to put my fingers down on, because it has absolutely polluted the mindset of just individuals in the Western world, and nobody knows really where to point the finger.
Well, I would say Doug Coe is a good place to start. And let's not forget, all their images of Jesus were white Jesus. Okay? So, if Jesus was white, then I'm purple. So, it's also, I saw, to me, a lot of white supremacy. They don't show you any black people in that group at any of those prayer breakfasts until the last episode with that one black guy running that small group. So I said, wow, you mean they let blacks in? My granddaughter was sitting there while I was watching it, and she was listening to me sigh. She's like, Grandma, are you okay? I'm like, ugh, this is such bullshit. She was listening at me scream at the TV like a man would during a football game. And, when you look at the ridiculousness of it, people have to understand that this country is controlled, and obviously the world, they're everywhere, by demons, by maniacs, okay? People who honestly believe they were chosen by God to lead. What's the difference between that and the Jews claiming that they were the chosen ones?
Well, see, that's the point. It's exactly the same thing. And again, I point to the Calvinistic, the Calvinites, who, are part of those pilgrims. Remember those pilgrims they taught us about at school?
Yeah.
Who were supposed to come here and found this nation despite the fact that they were the horrendous native people. All those people, they were here because of destiny, and there was lots of destiny that was built into the discussion. Sounds like a real general open term. But the fact is that they believed that those that were financially successful had evidence that they were favored by God.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's a historical fact. Nobody can argue that when you take a look at the Calvinist sects of Christianity at that time. And it has prevailed across the system and across time, and has now transferred into, well, Trump is God's instrument, because we say he's God's instrument. And you know why we can say that, with full confidence? Because look at his successes.
Right, but where are his successes? That's what I'd like to know.
Listen, I do too. You take a look at the disingenuous Tom Steyer who's out there. Donald Trump is a fraud and a failure, and that's why I'm running for president. Really? Well, if you really think that, then how come you're not trying very, very hard, Mr. Billionaire? Running some commercials and making those statements, that's all fine and dandy. But notice that Democratic Party that you're supposedly going to give all your allegiance to, regardless of how it turns out for you, notice that he will not stand against them, who are the do-nothing individuals who have all sorts of justification to start, many more processes that would be a lot more effective than what they're utilizing right now, because at the end of the day, it's all a big joke. The establishment protects itself. And you've got to recognize that this left-right paradigm that they show you, in general public view, is a fallacy. Beyond, it's not just a clever political thing I'm saying here, it's a straight, direct fallacy. Mm-hmm. They are all part of the same corporate interest, and some of them have slightly different paymasters, but the whole game is rigged. And not a one of them that's part of this allegedly representative government represents any of us. Which takes us to this whole concept that's being debated now again and again because another mass shooting happened. Oh, wait, 2 more. Oh, wait, 3 more, in the past few weeks.
Mm-hmm. No, and you have so many Latinos now who are even afraid to come out of their house because they're afraid of getting arrested. I saw a bunch of Latino teenage girls who were holding up a sign saying that if we get shot, we want pictures of our bodies to be posted. And they're afraid now that just because of the color of their skin, that they're going to be targeted, which, of course, the shooter at El Paso said he went there specifically to target Mexicans. So did the guy at the Garlic Festival. Mm-hmm. And yet, if the news wants to still cover up for Trump and say, no, it was video games. It wasn't the words coming out of Trump's mouth, his hatred, and now he wants to take away legal migrants that are here that might be getting food stamps, that might be getting Medicaid. Even if they're legal, he doesn't want them in this country. Who's he coming after next? That's what people have to understand. I keep telling people over and over, Hitler didn't start with the Jews, okay? And people need to understand there's no end to Trump's racism or hatred. And if they're going to go with this whole, keep white America white, they're too late. And that could be part of why so many black women disproportionately die in childbirth in this country. And that's a story I picked up for my next news show. But when you look at it, they want abortion to be illegal, but specifically for white women, because they want to keep having white babies. I guess the pedophile ring prefers them over other children.
I can't say I can speak to what pedophiles prefer. I'm not sure, but it's a frightening situation. Again, let's break down the realism of it, right? When you actually go through the legal process of turning around and getting yourself a green card and everything else, there's all sorts of waiting periods where you're not eligible to work, but also you're not eligible for any of that support. Then you can get some of that support the way the laws used to stand and everything, and you would kind of require it unless you had enough cash when you came into this country to, basically pay your bills while you're in waiting.
Right.
Or you had the support of somebody who was already here who was going to pay all your bills while you're waiting. So, quite honestly, green card holders who are self-sufficient is almost a fallacy unless they came in here with money. So, essentially, either you have to have money to buy your way in here, okay, or you have to have somebody who's willing to just, foot the bill for you, all right? And that's the only people that are allowed to come in. Now, does somebody think that that's a great idea? I don't know who really would word it like I just did, but that's essentially what's happening. Because during that process, like I said, a green card, first of all, a lot of people don't even realize what a green card is. It used to be, now I don't know about nowadays, but some years ago, it was literally a green Social Security looking card, which gave them a temporary number so they could pay into the system.
Right.
Okay?
And a lot of them pay into the system and never collect it.
Well, most of them never collected. That's right, which makes you wonder, between the people that die before they can collect Social Security, the people that pay in that are never going to pull it out, the individuals that, simply don't end up collecting because yada, 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 different reasons. You wonder why there isn't a surplus sitting at Social Security, quite honestly.
Well, it's because the government's borrowed trillions from Social Security and never paid it back, and now they want the rest of it.
Yeah, of course. But see, that's the thing, though, is no matter what the intent of a program is or anything else, and food stamps, everybody goes, well, I don't want my tax dollars. Department of Agriculture credits are not your tax dollars, first of all. But anyway, look, the whole thing is irrelevant. They're going to clamp down in any direction they can. They're going to behave like we're stopping, all these bad people from coming in. Meanwhile, the little girl that was out there, the 11-year-old that was crying, who was featured on everybody's news show, right? Who was crying for her father who had been snatched. You remember that image of that little girl, right?
Right.
Interesting update on that story. First of all, the people from the homeland, they decided to say, hey, don't feel bad for her. She was reunited with her mother later on that night. Of course, 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon, all the way till like 8, 9 o'clock at night, this kid is sitting in a gymnasium, not sure what's going on. Meanwhile, she's the oldest of 4 kids, okay, when we get into details. As soon as people started figuring out who she was, a whole bunch of creepy sort of people approaching the family there. I'll adopt you, little girl. All right, weirdness like that. Anyway, the father who disappeared, by the way, has 0 criminal record, outside of the fact that he's here, you know, with a paperwork issue, okay, as far as being an illegal immigrant, right? And guess what? The mother, the kids, they don't know where the man is. They haven't heard from him. They're not sure if he's alive or dead, and now they're hiding. And you know why? Because there's been some public spotlight on them, and now they're creeped out by the approaches. They've been threatened, everything else, because this little girl cried in front of a camera.
Right.
What in the hell place do I live in, Maria?
We live in hell.
What is wrong with people?
We live in hell. Listen, I have said it for decades. A nation founded by genocide can only end the same way. And we learn nothing from history. You know, we are going to be a bigger fall. We're already falling faster than the Roman Empire. And I hate to say it, but America deserves it. And it's always been because of our foreign policy. So, you know, people can, you know, listen, the only sense that I can make out of all of this, Chuck, is that white people are afraid that when they're not the majority, they'll be treated the way they've treated minorities all these years. It's their own guilt that's giving them that fear. What else could it be? It's not because Jesus told them to do that, you know, because Jesus wasn't white, but yet he managed to find 12 disciples with white guys' names, which is pretty interesting if you think about the stupidity of it. But, you know, this is the world we live in. You know, I don't remember Jesus saying, you know, just love this particular type of person. So, you know, when I saw the show, The Family, I'm like, wow, these people are really mentally ill. And I just kept saying out loud, these are all demons. And they are demons. And there's, you know, it's interesting because I don't know if you got to hear my last show with Michael Rakia, but he, you know, we talked about demons. And these people are demons. This world is run by demons. And for understanding of what demons are, in case you missed the show, everybody, go back in and listen to the last show I did with Michael Rakia. But when you look at them, they have no compassion. You know, Trump, there's a big shooting. You know, all he cares about is photo ops. None of the victims would meet with him, and rightfully so. He's the one that pulled the trigger as far as I'm concerned. And then they had the baby whose parents died trying to shield their baby. He had them bring that innocent baby back for a photo op with him and his illegal wife. All right, if you want to send anybody back where they came from, let's start with her.
Yeah, I mean, to describe the sickening nature of that imagery. You know,
well, but here's a little bit of history. I forget what the general's name was during the attack on Wounded Knee in America, which was still the biggest murder of Native Americans in one place. I think over 220 were slaughtered. But one of the generals that did the slaughtering and killed the parents of a little baby the same size as that, took the baby and called the baby Lost Bird. That became her name. And he also took a photograph with the baby of the parents he slaughtered. So, you know, history continues to repeat itself, but people are ignorant of history. So it will continue this way till the planet's gone.
You know, not to harp too much on the imagery, but I want people to not forget that when you're talking about this baby that, you know, was recovering in the hospital from broken fingers because the child's mother utilized her body to protect, to shield that baby. Okay, he was 2 months old, and in the process, the child's fingers were broken. Okay. Mm-hmm. On top of that, the child's father attempted to shield his family. Both of them gone. That child will never have a memory, not at all, of their parents, but somehow is eligible. Somebody makes a decision on that child's behalf to place them in the arms of Miss Be Best. Right?
Right.
Miss non-bullying campaign. Miss, well, I don't really like the idea of illegal immigrants like my husband, even though I don't have a work record for when I had a visa, and even though I used chain migration to bring my family in, and even though I still don't speak the language properly, you know what?
But the difference is they're white. Okay, there's the difference. You know, when you're white, you're right in America. That's the way it goes.
Well, you know,
of course, I don't
this
agree
is
with
the
it.
thing. White. I'm laughing at this point.
Well, I don't understand how Trump can be insulted over being called a racist when he's run and will run again on a racist platform. He runs on fear and white extinction. That's his whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's always been his thing since he was young. It doesn't matter. This is nothing new. Look at how he rags on Obama constantly. You know, he just can't get that, a black man was 100 times better at the job than he is. And I'm sure Obama's not going to be caught up in the Epstein mess.
No, that's one guarantee there. No matter what they tried to throw at him, I've never seen Obama thrown into the middle of it.
Right.
Okay.
And truthfully, if the Clintons wanted to kill Epstein, if they had the power to get inside a prison run by William Barr, Trump's cover-up man, don't you think Trump would have been dead a long time ago?
See, that's what I'm figuring. And that's the amazing part, again, about this tug-of-war on conspiracy theories, which now is becoming just demonized in general. Those people that talk about conspiracy theories. I want you to be aware of that, Meria, and also listeners. You know, those of us that study this stuff, those of us that know that conspiracy is not theory, those of us that know that, individuals do conspire together, which, again, you want to talk conspiracy, how about that Netflix series that both of us just watched? Right. There's a conspiracy right there that nobody's talking about. But all the conspiracies that have actually been proven as fact now, to be a conspiracy theorist, once again, it is in vogue to demonize people who would even dare to look at the alternative explanations.
Well,
right?
But then you have the other side of it, the crazy conspiracy theorists who see a conspiracy in everything, including a milkshake.
No, you see, that's true. And I got to tell you, I got handed the Epstein pictures, right? Look, somebody faked it. It's a fake picture. The ear doesn't match. Of course, nobody's accounting for the fact that damage is done if somebody is asphyxiated, blood is cut off, and all that kind of stuff. They also don't know how to analyze photographs, but they look at two different dissimilar images, and they say, look, conspiracy. So I do know a little something about photographic analysis. Okay? So I took a bit of time and used 1,100 comparison images. First of all, it's inconclusive about this whole ear thing. They say the nose doesn't match. They're wrong about that. However,
well, I don't know. That nose looked pretty poly-nosed compared to his regular nose when I looked at it.
Yeah, but what it is it's an angular thing. If you take a look at the shadows and the angles, you can actually line it up, and it makes sense. However, the image in and of itself, and the set of images, because there's not just one, the set of images are, in my opinion, I got to say, there is alteration to the digital image. Now, that is not the same as old photo, it's not like somebody photoshopped it, okay? But there is some sort of alteration that has gone on there at the source, because I looked at the distribution of these things across the media, and there is something wrong with it. When you go down to the pixel level on these things, right, you can see that through certain processes, they kind of smooth together some pixels and make things a little smoother in an image. When you run them through certain filters and things like this, the images that were distributed are not unaltered. There is an alteration. I am not clear on what the alteration is, but I'm fairly satisfied that that's his head. On the other hand, to try and get a clean comparison image for his left profile anywhere in public is very, very difficult. So, on the one hand, I can see what the problem is there, but meanwhile, let me tell you how that doesn't even matter. Okay? Because again, we're going to have an autopsy that's going to cover it up. You got a cover-up artist in there as a consultant allegedly on Epstein's behalf. Okay? You've already got the official story. They've tried to float 3 or 4 different disinformation pieces about how things are actually handled in a prison with that security level on it. They've tried to sell it as, well, suicides happen a lot in the special housing. That's why they don't when they're in special housing. But, hey, let's pay no attention to reality. Let's get into a tug of war as to whether it's the Clintons or the Trumps, because that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? It's the establishment, Maria. You still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening to you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, the other thing is, if he was dead in jail, why didn't they cover him when they brought him out? Why was his face exposed? Why was he wearing an orange jumpsuit? And now this morning I saw that he basically, supposedly, hung himself with a sheet from the top bunk bed on his knees. Now, for all we know, he could have been having that asphyxiation type sex with himself. But if again, why wasn't he under suicide watch? Because William Barr pulled him off? Why was William Barr visiting him in prison? With the same reason Tom Hayden visited Frank Pantangeli or whatever in The Godfather?
Oh, Pantangeli.
Pantangeli.
That comes up in the... Did you read about Roger Stone?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, since you mentioned Frank Pantangeli, they're actually arguing in court because nobody's paying attention to Roger Stone's trial at the moment. But it's still going on, just so you know. They're arguing in court as to whether they can play that scene from The Godfather where Pantangeli clams up while testifying. They're literally, I'm not kidding, I'm not making this up. They're arguing as to whether they can actually play that in court because there was a reference to it in the text between Roger Stone and somebody else about doing a Frank Pantangeli, which is hilarious to listen to these talking heads on a couple of networks when they did decide to, say something about it in audio form here or there. They can't pronounce Pantangeli, okay? And so... just so you know, that's actually something that's
Look, it was one of the first things. Yeah, it was one of the first things I thought of when I saw that William Barr had visited Epstein in prison. Even Judge Napolitano on Fox News said somebody brought something in there. There's no way he could have done this by himself.
Well, and in special housing, they're not supposed to have. This is another funny thing to me. The sheets and things they give you,
like paper.
Whether they put you in violent lockdown or they put you in isolation for one reason or another, or the special housing units, usually you either get no sheet or you have a sheet that is basically made of paper.
Exactly.
It's not strong unless you're going to cram it down your own throat, okay, and suffocate yourself for at least 90 seconds. In order to achieve unconsciousness, you're not gonna be able to do it with their sheets.
Right.
So how he got a sheet that was strong enough to do that?
Right.
Why it is they took away his roommate 9 hours before, apparently.
Right, and why did the autopsy originally said they needed more information? It was inconclusive. So did he have a heart attack? Was he poisoned? Did they? And I saw somebody posted, did they Jack Ruby this guy? So, Americans are aware and awake, at least a lot of us are, about real conspiracies, like, the whole JFK, Lee Harvey, Jack Ruby, blah, blah, blah. It was amazing to me how no one was buying that story that he killed himself in jail. Chuck, we need to take a short break, so we'll continue this when we come back. Stay with us. Hi, this is Meria. I don't often get to talk directly to the listeners here on the Gary Knoll Network, but I felt like doing that today. I know a lot of you really enjoy my show, but you might not know that I do 4 shows a week over at my website, meria.net. So if you're loving the show you get to hear on Sunday, come on over to my site and subscribe because I've got hundreds of hours of great shows on pretty much every topic in the universe. And that again is meria.net, meria.net. And now we can get back to this excellent show. Thanks. Okay, welcome back to Hell and High Water with myself and Chuck Ochelli. Chuck, the other abnormality, which I wasn't surprised because I thought about the Pentagon on 9/11. I thought about Princess Di getting murdered in the tunnel. They had a camera malfunction. There's no video of his suicide. So, cameras work when they're trying to throw us in jail for a pot bust or a traffic stop. But they don't work when the big conspiracies are being pulled off, because there's no one that's ever going to convince me that the Pentagon has no video of what happened on 9/11.
Right. Well, in this Epstein case, I had not yet heard that they had announced that the cameras on the walk, which would be available normally, to see whether the guards visited them and all that stuff, I had not heard that they were absolutely malfunctioning. It was sort of floated out there as a possibility.
Well, the update on the camera malfunctioning is that they don't put cameras on an individual cell in case they're undressing or dressing. Now, that's bullshit.
No, that's nonsense.
So when the story continues to change, then there's a conspiracy here.
Well, see, this is part of the problem, right? You know what the other part of the problem is, though? Just like 9/11, you want to get another 9/11 parallel in?
Sure.
The day before, okay, the day before the event, if you will, a significant thing happened on 9/11. If you remember, hey, a whole lot of money's missing from the Pentagon, right?
Right, $3 trillion.
Okay, pay no attention to that for the moment. Just kind of store it in the back of your mind while I tell you this. A whole lot of documents were unsealed the day before Epstein's suicide.
Right.
And they included some really interesting names that I don't see really being heavily covered in the media at all.
No, of course not.
Including Prince Andrew and
Alan Dershowitz, Bill Richardson. Now I was reading this morning an article over from the UK of some of the other names that were in this guy's phone book, which they say doesn't mean they were guilty of anything, but even included Mick Jagger, Richard Branson. The list went on and on. But of course, everybody's hoping the suicide's going to make this case go away. But I think it's grabbed America's attention. And let's not forget, it also took the heat off Trump for his terrible performance in El Paso and in Ohio.
Yeah, absolutely. What in Ohio, did he even get up in the air before he started criticizing the people that didn't treat him enough like a rock star?
No, he was bitching all the way. Right, he was bitching all the way, and he wanted to have some good photo ops. I saw people saying that a lot of the nurses surrounding him were hired actors. I don't put anything past this guy. Back in my day, we had a song, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. But today with CFX and all these FX and special effects and whatnot, we can't believe anything we see either. Yeah.
That reminded me of what I was watching the footage going on in Hong Kong a little while ago. And blatantly, I'm watching a CNN reporter screaming about how they're kicking a guy who's down on the ground. Mm-hmm. Now, he doesn't know that there's a split screen coming back to America showing that actually the protesters had formed like a human shield around the guy and had put a stop to it. He was complaining about it a full 5, 7, 8 minutes, okay, after the event stopped. Now, you might say that was a delay from the satellite, but no, this guy was in real time describing something that already happened and telling you that it's still going on because they had trapped somebody that they felt was a provocateur planted among them as protesters.
Well, yeah.
It's really fascinating to watch them literally show you how they're lying.
Right. Well, remember on 9/11, that reporter that was reporting that Building 7 had collapsed when Building 7 was clearly in the picture behind him still standing.
Right. Yeah, so 18 years later, what have we learned?
We've learned that everything is an illusion. Everything is a rich man's game.
Oh, it is.
That's what we've learned. So how you can, and I did see an article, I forget where it was from, maybe Reader News, that said no matter how they roll out the official story of Epstein's death, no one will believe it.
Well, I don't know what to say except whoever said that is probably very right.
Right. I mean, I immediately said obfuscation, same as usual. There's so many players that could have wanted that guy dead that you'll never know, just like with JFK. They did it deliberately that way.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Who was in control of the prisoner? Okay? who was
The guy
running
wasn't
the show.
he wasn't even a regular prison guard either, the guy that was supposedly watching him, because they're understaffed. I guess the private prisons are getting too much of our tax dollars for the regular prisons to have people really working there.
Oh, that's true. But that is true, but still not an excuse. Okay,
No, of
I mean,
course
I
not.
literally said as soon as this happened, first of all, that it's like, not since Lee Harvey Oswald has there been a loss of a high-profile prisoner.
Right.
Okay, that shouldn't have been. It's really that bad.
I agree.
Now, that case is different because he was publicly killed by Jack Ruby from a gut shot, which is a whole other interesting thing.
And then
but-
Jack Ruby was quietly killed when they injected him with cancer. So.
Well, that whole thing, I don't know what happened to Jack Ruby, but I'll tell you
That
this,
was
he
what
was
he said.
literally insane.
Right.
By the time, they finally carted him away, he was out of his mind.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what was in his over there, but I got to tell you, it's something. I don't know if they literally injected him with cancer or they just toxified him so bad that, cancer was the merciful way his body put an end to it. Something happened to the man, though. It's absolutely amazing. But meanwhile, this Epstein thing is just the rabbit hole that will not end, I assure you.
Oh, I agree.
The weird thing that goes on through all this, though, is this concept of what is actually driving the invasion, right? We're still being dealt with the invasion
Right.
of these people, right? That are now cowering. Some of them afraid to come out because of the ICE raids. Some of them afraid to come out because there were other threats made too in other places where people didn't have to die by the dozens.
Right.
But it's a constant thing that's going on now by an emboldened situation, because for the longest time there's been this undertow, this thing festering, among white identity politics in this country. Mm-hmm. I have trouble wrapping my mind around this, and I got to tell you, Meria, you're the only person I could have this conversation with right now that I'm going to have a conversation with. I take note that among people who are supposed to be alternative thinkers, the one thing that they have absolutely swallowed all the Kool-Aid on is this concept of the invaders that are being positioned to take over what's rightfully theirs in a culture. Now, in Europe, you have some homogenous cultures where white people dominated, and the only other people that aren't white in their country are people who were subjugated and brought in. That's why on the BBC you do see a lot of pale skin, and then occasionally you see somebody who has ancestry from India. But that's because for a long time India was subjugated by the UK, and therefore you got a bit of migration. Not a lot, but a little bit.
Right. Well, don't leave out Israel and their war on the dark races there and what they do to them in Israel.
Well, of course, there's that too, and that whole interesting conflagration because of continuously subjugated people known as the Palestinians, who have been subjugated long before that flag was planted, post World War II over there. They were subjugated by other people, but of course, even though they tried to establish the homeland in other places before that, it got established there. And some people would even say that this is like the way of things. But this weird, unified kind of white people are under attack.
Right.
Christianity and white people are under attack is this resonating strangeness. And even people that you think are on the kooky side of Kooksville, and even for us who do consider alternative possibilities, who know that esoteric realities exist, who look at these people and go, wow, this is way out to lunch. I mean, you and I, we understand conspiracy theory. We understand conspiracy reality. But we look at QAnon and we go, that's bat crap nuts. You know what I mean? That's
absolutely.
gone.
I knew that from the get-go, but nobody wanted to listen to me, even some of my own co-hosts at the time. They were like, yeah, but look what they wrote. They're going to save us. They're saving us against the deep state. Trump's going to save us against the deep state. And I'm like, when did you hit your head and get such a brain injury that you can't see this is all bullshit?
Yeah, that's the thing, right?
You know, I mean, I think it was a month ago I saw articles being posted that Trump ended chemtrails. So every time I pull out of my driveway, if I have somebody in my car or my granddaughter, I'll say, look up, there's those chemtrails Trump ended a month ago. People
I
who
know.
just
And,
want to
you know,
believe.
the people that said, well, look, at least he's fighting the pedophiles.
Right, he is a pedophile.
Right. I turned around and I did, you know, my due diligence to try and track down these raids where all these dozens of individuals were being picked up in various states through various law enforcement agencies. And you know what I found out? Is that, surprise, surprise, sometimes on the internet people make up things out of thin air.
Right.
These pedophile rings that are supposedly being broken up, not happening. It's not part of reality, okay? It might be part of somebody's TV script for, I don't know, Law and Order, SVU, CK, whatever, okay?
Right.
It might be,
Right.
but it is not part of reality. So the unreality that they choose to believe is fascinating. But the unifying concept, which nobody is speaking about, and again, even if they're out in, you know, madness land where Godzilla was actually a documentary because there are real giant lizards all across the planet and the government's keeping us from it, okay? Or there are treaties being written between various aliens and some of them are from alternate dimensions, and meanwhile you are subject to it because you signed it in another life.
Right.
Okay, or it's somebody who's saying, look, maybe there's something wrong with the murder of Bobby Kennedy, or it's just all across the board. This white replacement thing, this idea of, well, they are specifically, usually it's the Democrats, by the way, are you know, in this country anyway, the liberals everywhere else. They're moving these people in because they're going to be subject to them, and therefore they are hijacking it from the legitimate government, which is really the right-wing government, and they are destroying you. They are destroying everybody who's white. And I can't wrap my mind.
Well, who are all these?
Who
are all these mass shooters? They're all homegrown white male terrorists.
Oh,
and
yeah.
yet,
Pay no attention to that.
Right? Even when Christopher Wray said that was the problem we have, we know what happened to his job. And then you look at, you know, the FBI, who their big thing is black extremist. When have we had a mass shooting by a black extremist in this country? You know, everybody wants to ignore the fact, including Trump, you know, defunding the domestic terrorism branch of Homeland Security, because after all, that's his base. He can't afford for them to go to jail. Every one of these shooters, especially the ones that survive, are white. And they're all inspired by him. There's 3 of them that have already used Trump made me do it in court, from the MAGA Obama to that 60-something-year-old man who slammed that kid into the ground because he didn't take his hat off during the flag salute.
Oh, that's another horrendous story.
But their attorneys are actually in court saying he was just doing what Donald Trump told him to do.
Yeah, they are.
You know?
Yeah, they are.
So, you know, Trump still wants to walk away like he's got, nothing to do with it because he doesn't have a racist bone in his body. First of all, he doesn't look like he has any bones in his body.
Yeah, there's that, yeah. But also there is the thing that Scaramucci said, which, you know, most of that is just a grab for attention. Nobody's paid attention to him in a while, so I know that that's what this is about. This whole I'm now neutral on my friend Donald Trump, and we need a relief pitcher. Yeah, okay.
But you know what he said that was important? You know what he did say, though, that struck me? He says he turns on everybody, and sooner or later he's going to turn on America.
See, now there is where he's starting to speak some truth. He said that, and he also said, you know, this level of hate and everything that's coming out of the man is exactly the problem. But what's amazing is, hey, pay no attention to that, Maria, because Tucker Carlson told us that, white supremacy is a hoax.
Right, and then he went on vacation, and he's losing advertisers like crazy. Listen, I have said for decades on this show, you only have 2 votes that count. You vote with your fork, which means you're either going to, support agribusiness and slaughterhouses, or you vote with your dollar. Your regular vote doesn't mean diddly squat, because if it did, it would be illegal. But if we can boycott, if we don't take the money away from these people, they laugh at us all the way to the bank. Whether it's you're in a big bank, if you're in a national bank, I told people to get their money out of big banks. I did it myself. I never tell people to do anything I don't do. But imagine if everybody took their money out of, bank, BOA, Chase, whatever the hell the other banks are. And everybody boycotted these businesses, Chick-fil-A, the haters. If everybody boycotted them, you don't want to bake a cake for a gay person, go out of business. Okay? But people don't realize the spending power. And, when everybody keeps arguing with me, why won't you go with me to Walmart? I said, I have never spent a dime in Walmart, and I never will. I don't even like being seen inside that store. But, if people realize, you've got the power, and right now your only power you have is your fork and your dollar. So it's the same thing. If they're paying their money to stream MSNBC or Fox News, but they're not supporting a show like yours, a show like mine, Richard Grove, Richie Allen, then they're part of the problem. And you're going to have to look in the mirror and say, who am I supporting? What magazines, newspapers? Why can't I afford $10 a month for two people that are busting their ass with no ulterior motive, no sponsors, no advertising, just telling us the truth to wake us up? So, when people say, well, I'm not doing anything wrong, well, you're also not doing anything right. And sooner or later, that karma comes around. And you're going to have no excuse. There's no excuse. Once you face yourself in the afterlife, good luck with that. Have a good time, reincarnating on planet hell for all of eternity. So I don't intend to do that, which is part and parcel of why I do the show. I don't even know that I want to call myself a patriot because I don't think I am anymore. But I am what I find. I don't know, Chuck. I like to watch American Dad. Do you ever watch the cartoon American Dad?
Of course.
Okay. You know what I find interesting, and I had that discussion with my granddaughter because I usually watch 2 before I go to bed so I could clear the day out of my head. When they introduced that cute little song where he jumps out of bed, Good Morning USA.
Yeah.
But at one point he goes, the sun is shining and there's grace or smiling on the American race. And I looked at my granddaughter and I said to her, why can't we just call ourselves the American race? Black, white, yellow, in between, we're the American race. It's like the Italian race, the Spanish race, okay? Here, a cartoon is bringing you more unity with 3 words, the American race, than anything I've seen in politics in all my life.
See, that's the thing. There's a unique opportunity here. I recognize and agree with you that we're dealing with a nation that was founded on the blood of others, and we know this. But the opportunity to do something useful with that blood, which we cannot unspill at this point in time, is right there. And it's been right there for a long time, and it's been through this harsh process where no matter what, no matter how they came, every immigrant group that creates a flux coming into this country in its very short history has come through and contributed and been put through the ringer and been called invaders and been said that they were here to destroy everything. And meanwhile, eventually, I want you to imagine anything resembling American culture, which I defy somebody to really define. Anything resembling American culture. Tell me what it would be without the slaves who were brought here. Tell me what it would be without the Italians that built your cities. Tell me what it would be without the Irish who did all the dirty jobs for a nickel when other people were getting paid a dime. Tell me what it would be without the Asians who died building the railroads so that, manifest destiny could be realized. Tell me what it would be without the contributions to American culture, in air quotes, from all these groups. Tell me what it would be. The Jews even. Those who came, and you can argue about Hollywood or whatever else, but entertainment, the cultural, pop cultural backstop that is created in this place we call America. Tell me what it would be without these different influxes of individuals. You can't even imagine it. What is American music? What is actually American music? What is actually American cuisine? Look at it. We have an opportunity here to not be the homogenous, xenophobic, this is our land, but somebody, somewhere, created this idea that has absolutely poisoned seemingly everyone on one level or another, outside of myself and you, I can only satisfactorily say that you are the only other person that I know that does this kind of work, that is not poisoned by this idea that America's a white country, America's a Christian country, and it belongs to them.
Right.
Because I'm not white. I'm not taking that label.
Me
I'm not
either.
Christian. I know that.
That's exactly the conversation I had with somebody at my gym this week. And when I gave him some facts and figures, like the fact that Italians were also thrown into internment camps along with Japanese Americans, he was stunned. And I said, you know what? People just don't know history because they're certainly not going to teach you in school. And I said, I'm glad it wasn't my people that came over on those initial Mayflowers. Anyway, we could talk about history forever, but, Chuck, I know you want to talk more about this subject, but I'm going to tell everybody, 20 years ago, one of the earliest interviews I did on the show, because we're pretty much out of time, was the book The World is a Ghetto by Howard Winant. And the war on the dark races, he proves, has been going on for centuries. So it's nothing new. And it needs to end for sure. Chuck, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you letting me speak a little bit because, this kind of information, this kind of thought provocation needs to be had. Who knows, maybe we'll have the chance to actually rise up and do something at some point like looks like they're doing in Hong Kong a little bit, huh?
Absolutely. I think we're past the time to do something. All right, Chuck, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Chuck Ochelli, check his work out at Ochelli.com. There's a live link here. And I still like the American race, but how about we're all citizens of the same planet, or in the words of JFK, we all sit under the same sky, we all breathe the same air. Anyway, thanks for listening, thanks for supporting the show, and I will see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening and supporting the Meria Show. Tell others what you learned today. Knowledge becomes wisdom only when it's shared. Encourage others to subscribe today. www.meria.net. Often imitated, never duplicated. A world of information all in one place. www.meria.net. Always ahead of the curve. Always on your side. Get active or get radioactive. Subscribe today.